Well, good morning. Granny Gear here for Old Guy on a Bike, and welcome to another Tech Tuesday video. In this one, I'm talking about the Coros Dura, which is a fascinating little bike computer and has made a compelling case for itself in my time using it. All that coming up in this Tech Tuesday video. Well, the bike computer wars, they seem to be heating up. There are competitors coming into the market, competing with the two big boys, of course, Garmin and Wahoo, who hold a pretty good lion's share of the bike computer market. But there's challengers coming into the market, coming in, seems like, every year. Recently, I tested the Magine C606, which for $150, well, it wasn't awful, but it also fell short in a few places I thought were important to me. Well, in the process of me going through the videos and doing the Magine, well, apparently Coros was watching because they reached out to me and said, hey, we make the Dura, which of course I had heard of and knew quite a bit about. Said, I'd like to send you one. I'd like you to tell me what you think about it. And then you can tell others what you think about it. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I am under no obligation to say nice things about this. They sent this to me and an accessory heart rate armband, which I'll talk about that too, and they sent that to me at no cost and no obligation. All right, let's get going because I've liked using this and I want to tell you about why. Now, sometimes when a product comes out onto the market, especially if it's an early release and somebody gets samples, sometimes the edges can use a little sanding, you know what I mean, to make it work as well as everybody would like it to. And that kind of happened with the Dura. People got some early production versions of this, and well, it was a little rough around the edges, but Dura worked very, very hard to get this thing polished before it really got into the consumer's hands. And they have done updates ever since to it. So if you're seeing an old video on it and you're saying, oh, that doesn't sound very good, be careful because the updates have changed lots of things. For instance, look at these two screenshots. You can see the list of things that they have changed and updated and improved. And that's typical of a company, especially with a new product. They'll be updating things and making corrections as they go along. So this Coros Dura may not be the Coros Dura of old, at least as far as using it. So keep that in mind as we go forward. So begin with, Coros is a company I'd never heard of. Their claim to fame, their market share is big in like sports watches, as far as like fitness watches for triathletes, adventurers, outdoor adventurers. They got a lot of them, and I understand they're very, very good. I don't know. I've never used them. I had never heard of Coros, but I had heard of the Dura, and I guess in that sense I heard of Coros. Because this has one big claim to fame, which makes it compelling for a lot of users. Now, obviously, it's a lovely color screen. It's a touch screen. It's a very modern, well-built looking bike computer. It comes with a leash and a mount and a charging cable and good instructions. The app is excellent. It has all those kinds of features you could want in a computer, like others do. It's got a kind of a unique form factor to it, doesn't it? It's got this little, like a watch crown on the side, which as you rotate it, it's a button. You can click it in, and it's also, as you rotate, if you can see it on the computer, there we go. Maybe that's good. The screen changes. So that's kind of cool. So that's kind of unique, that little wheel on the side of it. It's only one button on it right here below the little crown wheel. And that turns it, really doesn't really turn it on and off. It puts it to sleep or it wakes it up. Kind of interesting. It also is like the back button for menu. So one button, one little wheel, which also is a pushy in button. All right. What's up with the tall forehead? What is all this about? Well, that's where the solar panel lives, because this is a solar panel equipped cycling computer. And that really is the big right hook to the other computers on the market that aren't solar and maybe don't do solar as well as this, because this thing is kind of amazing in the battery life you get out of it. Now, Coros says with one single charge on this, you can get up to 120 hours of battery life, irrespective of the solar panel. But the solar panel charges back to the battery as you're using it. Now, when I first got it, I thought, I don't know if I care too much about that, because I'm the kind of guy, when I get home, I just charge everything, right? I don't forget. I'm really good about that kind of stuff. I just charge my computer, I charge my lights, I check my batteries on my bike, I'll do all that. Not Mrs. Granny Gear. Mrs. Granny Gear will charge things 3 rides after they're dead. She just won't think about it. She's just got lots of other things. She's a busy woman. I give her a break, okay? When I got this, I thought, I don't know if I care, but you know what? I really like it. So check this out. Check this out. Get my laptop open here. Because what I started doing when I was using it, I charged it to 100%. Then I went out and I just used it. And I started tracking. I did this for about 8 rides or so, maybe a little more. And I wanted to see how long the ride was, how long the battery use was, and how much solar I got, and what I ended up at the end. Example, 3 hours and 42-minute ride. I used 6.4% battery. I gained 3.7% solar. I lost 2.7%, 96.8% battery. And I kept doing that. After 6 days of use, I had 89% battery with a total ride time of 10.3 hours, total solar charge 10.3 hours. So 6 days, 6 rides of use, which 10 hours of riding time, I still had 89% battery. Down and down and down and down. Sometimes I would gain as much solar battery back as I used when I rode. Sometimes I would gain more. I would actually be at a net gain at the end of the ride. Very cool. Now you'll see the Coros Dura mounted on a lot of people's handlebars who are doing bike packing, multi-day adventure races, those types of things, because simply this would be one less thing that you had to worry about charging for something like that. In fact, the mount that comes with this has a little security screw feature where you can put this in the mount, the Coros mount, tighten the little screw down, and you can't remove the computer from the mount, which means somebody's going to have to break it or take it apart with a tool to get your computer and just walk away with it. Which goes to point out the fact that Coros is pretty certain that you could go do a long trip. I mean, I'm wondering if you couldn't just ride this thing across the United States and never charge it if it was decently sunny and you weren't riding all night all the time. Which, I have to say, for a lot of people may not matter, but it ain't bad either, because Mrs. Granny Gear, if she had this, she probably only had to charge this, I don't know, once every 6 months or something? I have no idea. For her, that's not bad. You know what? If nothing else, just to get a kick out of looking at the numbers, like, wow, that's kind of neat. But it has to be more than a big battery, doesn't it? It has to actually function as a good computer. And this is a very modern computer. The screen is very nice. It's a color screen. I said it's a touch screen. The app is excellent to use. It had no problem finding the computer. You know, it got the little camera thing where you do that little square of squiggly things, and it finds the computer and syncs to it, and you name it. It syncs with all the modern apps out there. I'll show you a screenshot of all the different apps that you can use to upload and download your rides and create routes on and things like that. It does it natively in the app with Strava. With Ride with GPS, it's a little different. It's not in the app selection within the app for the Coros Dura. I don't know why. I'm waiting to hear back from Coros. Maybe one day it will be. So what you got to do with Ride with GPS is go to Ride with GPS app, and you have to authorize the Dura. Once it does that, and there's instructions with how to do that, and I'll get to support in a minute from Coros. Once it does that, I had no problem. If I pin a route, it just it appears in my library on the app, and I can push it to the Dura. I can pull it out of the Dura. I use this for routing several rides just to play with it. I thought it worked fine. I never use the auto reroute. I find those just to be a nag. So I would always disable that in the route. I really don't want it to do that. So I didn't really use that function. I don't know how many people actually do. I guess if you were in the city somewhere you've never been and you're lost, that's not bad. But I think in that circumstance, I would just soon get my phone out and figure it out. So, but I did use it for a lot of routes. It worked great. It has pop-up turn by turn. It gives you all your climbs within that route. It'll create a new page when you're in a route. They'll tell you you can scroll down and look at all 20 climbs, what they're about, when they are. It has Climb Pro feature, so as you're beginning to do a climb, it'll give you the climb profile, tells you when you're done climbing. It just really does all the things that the machine actually didn't do very, very well, but I was very, very pleased. Never found a routing function that I thought really wasn't very good. As far as the rest of the functions, you know, looking at these screenshots, it has all the data screens you could possibly want. I have it synced with 2 heart rate monitors, my electronic shifting on all my SRAM bikes, my radar unit, and that's really, I don't have a power meter or anything like that. that was easy peasy. You can name them, which I really like. So sometimes when you're looking at a sensor in your computer, it's like, BZ245-AA, like, I don't know what that is. Well, in this app, you can name it and say radar tail light or power meter or what have you. And I thought that was very cool. Not a lot of accessories for the Dura. You can get a mount, which I could never get a mount with the machine. I never figured out where I could buy that. With the Coros Dura, you can on their website. That's nice. It's a very nice mount. And this is Garmin mount compatible. So Garmin mounts are everywhere. It clicks in easier to the Garmin mount than the machine. I always thought I was going to break the machine if I used it with a Garmin mount. Way too much effort to get it to click in. Not so with the Dura. It's a nice fit. If you ever do break the little mounting ears, little tabs on the back, it's replaceable, which is kind of nice. With a couple screws, you can replace this if it ever gets damaged. You don't have to throw away your computer. That's not bad. Now, another thing I used, I'm going to do a video, I think, just on this because I'd never used one before. I want to use it for a while. But Coros makes an armband heart rate monitor strap. I just got one. I used it once. I want to use it some more before I say it's great. But boy, is that comfortable and slick, and you can take it on and off almost irrespective of your clothing. I mean, if you got a long sleeve jersey on, you're gonna have to at least take half of it off to put it on, but very slick. So that's something that I think I'll probably end up liking very, very much. Talk about support, because that is important. In the app, you can set up and open a ticket within the Coros Dura app, and they have been very responsive. Sometimes within an hour, almost always within 24 hours, I'll get an email back from them. They know who I am because it comes from me in my app. Very nice. They're very good to work with. They will point me to a support page if they haven't, if I haven't found it, and sometimes I didn't. Now here's a couple screenshots. Gives you an idea how much support topics there is for the Dura. It's really pretty deluxe. And if I had known those were there more and been more aware of them and read them, probably would have saved me from opening a couple support tickets. But they were good. They even gave me a follow-up email saying, hi, how was your experience? Do you have any more questions? Did it solve that? If not, we'd like to hear from you. You know what? That was very nice. All right, other than the fact that the Coros Dura is the everlasting gobstopper of bicycle computers as far as battery life is concerned, let's take a look at the good, and if there is any, the less than good of the Coros Dura computer. The good. Well, obviously I already covered the fact that it just seems to go on and on and on with the solar charging and the big battery. For you, if that's really important, then that's really important. If it's not, still not a bad thing. So let's talk about the screens. I really like the graph option of the screen, which kind of has a really different look to it. It's really hard to see here. I'll try and take a better picture of it. But instead of having just like a bunch of data numbers, like for instance, that screen you can see, that's just a bunch of numbers, isn't it? And I created this screen. It's got the pause time, time to sunset, elevation gain, elevation loss, temperature, battery, outside temperature, battery life, things like that. I was just a bunch of numbers. I don't really look at this, but if I want to sit and look and see how much daylight do I have left, things like that, how long have I been riding, that's pretty cool. But my main screen, I have miles per hour in big numbers, then little numbers, average max, okay, miles per hour. I have heart rate in the middle and a big number with all the different little color bars for zones, zone 1 through 5, and they kind of expand and light up, so to speak, not light up in a sense, but they kind of glow, and they tell you what power band you're in for your heart rate. And next to it has an average and max heart rate. It also has the distance you've ridden, and I put a clock at the bottom so I know what time it is. However, on the less than good side of that, the smaller numbers when you're using the graph screen, so the main miles per hour is big, average mile per hour max, tiny. If you don't have really, really good eyesight, you're probably not going to see those numbers. They're just probably going to be too small. I can see them because my eyesight is really, really good, but not everybody can. Other than that, as far as the good, I just like using it. I haven't found anything that it doesn't do that I'd like it to do. I never use it for any advanced training things, or I didn't load transcontinental routes into it or anything like that. I just used it, and it never let me down, where the machine sometimes would make me scratch my head and go, huh? Well, this didn't. On the negative side, well, a couple of things. The crown wheel is interesting. Now, I got to where I would put my hand on the handlebar, move over my thumb, and just kind of dink, dink, dink it. It doesn't take much to get it to move. If it's bumpy out there, you just try and reach out with a finger and rotate it. You can get more than one screen sometimes. It'll go bump, bump, you know, and do 2 clicks, so to speak, and you move one screen. In that case, a big button is better, but sometimes buttons with gloves on are pretty hard to push. This isn't. So, I wish maybe the detents were a little stronger in it. It took more effort to get it to move. Maybe that would be good. I'm not sure. But I didn't hate it. But it might be polarizing for some people. My biggest complaint is that the screen lacks brightness or contrast. Maybe it's not brightness. It lacks contrast in shaded situations. If the sun's on it, great. If it's not dark out, if it's not light out at all, great. I can see it just fine. But when I'm in shadow, at a glance, I have a hard time seeing the detail on the screen. And that's the biggest disappointment I have with this. Other than that, I really like this thing. So that is the Coros Dura in a Granny Gear sized nutshell. I think it's a very compelling computer for $250 or so at the time of this writing, with the support you get, the functions it has, the track record of Coros making improvements as they go along. You know, that's not going to stop. I think it's a very compelling computer for considerably less than the big boys are offering. And if the solar function and the long battery life, man, if that makes sense to you, this thing's got to be the king. All right, thanks to Coros for letting me try this unit out. As I said, I like this well enough to feel good about putting an affiliate link in my descriptions. And I'm going to be adding a few more of these coming up. And you know what? If you're going to buy something from Coros, whether it's a computer or a watch, if you want to click on the link and do it through this channel, well, you know what? That helps me put gas in my gas tank. All right, you guys have a great week and or weekend. And as always, you go ride your bikes.